What's up, guys? It's your boys Wilkie back at with some more of the Chris Watts murders. We're going to be taking a look at, obviously, the autopsy diagrams, more of an explained, in-depth look at these. A lot of people kind of were on the other videos that I just posted about the autopsies of Shanann, Bella, and Cece. A lot of big words were thrown out, which I understand myself, because there's some of those words I'm like, the what? So we're going to be taking a little bit more closer, like, visual diagram of these autopsies. More of the questions that I have is like the face and stuff like that, the fingerprints. Bella, the little skin part that's inside your mouth right here, that was actually damaged due to the severe like pressure that was put on her mouth. So you can't tell me that there's no like DNA, there's no fingerprints on her face. There's just a whole bunch of questions when it comes to the autopsies and stuff like that. We've obviously known that there's no chloroform involved, there was no drugs involved, for this reason, to make sure that they weren't like sedated and so forth. But a lot of you guys wanted to have more of a, I wouldn't say dumber down version, but more of a visual, physical kind of representation for the autopsies of the Chris Watts murders. So with that being said, before we go any further, if you guys could do me a solid favor, which hundreds of you guys have been so generous and doing over the past few months, is subscribing to the YouTube channel by hitting the white bar icon down at the bottom right, hit the bell icon next to it, so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I posted that video. Then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, I'm so blessed to have all of you guys. We're booming by the numbers. We're trying to get to 50K, so I can give one of you guys a Meta Quest 3 virtual reality headset that anybody and anyone can use for gaming, for movies and music, and learning how to do. It's fantastic. I have one myself, and you definitely want to get your hands on that. And then when we get to 100, we're going to be giving away 2 more of those bad boys. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you guys go over to Michelle After Dark. She is the YouTube channel that we're watching for the in-depth and visual learning of this channel. I myself didn't want to get my hands on the actual autopsy files. I don't want them. I just don't need them in my life, because I've been looking at over the case, which is the 2,000 pages, which is on my computer. I've been reading over and over and over just to kind of dissect it and so forth like that. But again, I want to reiterate this as much as possible, because there's people that still speculate that I'm doing this for boredom. I'm doing this because I have nothing better to do with my time. I'm doing this for the justice of Shanann, Bella, Cece, and baby Nico. This is for educational purposes. So this is nowhere intent for my word to be used in a court of law. I am not a professional. I am not educated in forensic science and criminal justice. I just love watching like Criminal Minds and the First 48 and all those movies, and trying to figure out who the murderer is by watching what we see and hear, and just dissect it. And just, I enjoy that, and I want to help out as much as I can with all the other YouTubers that are out there. So I want to make that disclaimer. If you guys are squeamish towards audio and visual when it comes to autopsy and death and so forth, I suggest you not watch this video. If you can, then I want to let you know you'll be fine. It's no like very like pictures, it's just diagrams of the files and so forth like that. But those that hear things and then kind of get squeamish and upchucky, I just want to let you guys know that viewer discretion is advised. So with that being said, let's take a look at the Watts family autopsies explained a little bit more in depth with Michelle After Dark. Let's take a look.
It's Michelle here. Welcome to another video on the Watts family murders. I do hope you're doing well. As a requested video recently, I did a video about the autopsy of Shanann Watts. This is a follow-up to that, and I'm going to discuss the autopsies of Bella and Cece. So there is a trigger warning here. If you are particularly sensitive towards medical details, you know, these horrific circumstances, then this isn't the video.
So I think this is just Bella and Cece. If you would like me to look at Shanann, I can definitely do so. For those people that didn't understand the last 2 videos that I did, there's a lot of medical terms and a lot of things that people didn't understand. So I can definitely do that, but just let me know in the comments.
For you. But hopefully, if you stick around, you'll find this video informative, and I'm going to go through the main autopsy findings of both Bella and Cece. Before I do that, I just want to direct your attention back to Shanann's autopsy. Since I made the video on Shanann's autopsy, I have seen some creators talking about the autopsies, and I just want to make one point that seems to have been made by some creators. They've questioned why this is Shanann's autopsy,
His
why
are in
on
bags.
the diagram that is done at the time of the autopsy. So this is done once the clothes have been removed and a full external examination is made of the body. So some creators have said, why are these Shanann's hands and wrists kind of circled?
In
Is it
bags.
because there's injuries to the wrists
And
that
clippings.
weren't reported in the written up findings? No, this is just showing that Shanann's hands were bagged. So they were put in bags at the time she was extracted from the grave to preserve any evidence under her fingernails, etc., for additional testing if needed. So that's just a point for some creators who have questioned why that is. Also, other creators have examined why in Shanann's autopsy there's no indication about her scar on her neck. She had neck surgery. Some people have said, why is that not in the autopsy? On the external examination, it isn't mentioned, but you've got to remember that there was considerable skin slippage and damage, so perhaps that's why it wasn't mentioned. But if you look at the internal examination of her upper spine, you will notice that there is faintly visible hardware. So that's where she had her neck surgery. C6 is in the neck. I think that will be why the external scar wasn't evident. Okay, so those are just some things that have come up relating to Shanann since I made my video. So now let's go on to Bella. So she was born on 17th of December 2013, and the first report we see in her autopsy is the toxicology report. And there was a wide range of toxins present in her body, and they were able to collect chest cavity blood. Now, in Shanann's autopsy, they collected spleen blood and spleen blood only. I suspect that was because Shanann's organs were dried out because she'd been under the ground in the heat of summer for several days. She was buried in the early morning hours of the 13th of August. She was recovered just gone midnight on the 16th, and then the autopsy took place on the 17th. So there was considerable drying of the body. So I suspect they collected spleen blood because the spleen holds a lot of blood. I suspect that's just my...
Which in the last video, he did say it was spleen blood.
Chest cavity blood, and you can see there's a wide range of toxins present. These would have been toxins that were actually in the crude oil, so pretty horrible. But it also says that there were other tests that were unable to be performed. So these are all the detailed findings. Particular chemicals that were found, used in many industrial processes.
Poor little Bella.
So this was due to the crude oil. Not going to read all that, but it's all there in the autopsy.
Look at all those,
and those
chemicals.
Are the ones that were unable to be tested. So this N-propanol cancelled due to an interfering substance, and then other sample problems with that as well. But all of these would have been tested due to the place where Bella's body was found. So this is the analysis summary. So those were the positive tests found. If we go, the ones in bold, ones in these detailed findings, are the positive tests. So a range of other tests were done through liver tissue, such as amphetamines, barbiturates, cannabinoids, opiates, oxycodone, etc., and they weren't positive. So she wasn't drugged with any of these.
This just tells you, like other YouTubers have mentioned, not to blow up their channels, but they were not drugged. They were not. They didn't have chloroform. They didn't have any of that stuff. They were not sedated and so forth. So this shows that they didn't have anything in their bodies
before she was murdered. And then we get to the external examination. So as I said in my previous video on the autopsies, the body will be examined and photographed with any clothes on, and then the clothes are removed and the body is thoroughly examined. So this is in the forensic pathologist's own handwriting. Clothes were pink PJs with butterflies on it, underwear. The external body was checked, weight,
marbling,
height, etc. Any identifying scars, marks, injuries would have been noted. So you'll see here there's some indication of injury to the face that has been noted. Marking, I think that says around her lower body. So just some basics about her. We'll go to the typed up findings because those are easier to read. So history of being reported missing and subsequently located in an obvious state of death within an oil tank battery, and the diagnosis is asphyxiation due to smothering.
Her thing right here was
also
broke.
Apparent some blunt force trauma of the frenulum, which is it's the little bit of skin that is in between the lip and the teeth, and the gingival mucosa is the gum area in the jaw, the maxilla. There's also a considerable state of post-mortem artifact, as I explained in my video on Shanann's autopsy. That means findings that could confuse a situation, and that is due to decomposition. The highly unusual conditions in which she was found obviously creates post-mortem artifact. There was oil, water, and sludge debris in the stomach.
So I'm wondering, with it being in the stomach, wouldn't she had to like ingest some of that? I don't know, with her being gone, does it just like go into her stomach? Because usually they state that the person has to be breathing or like sucking some of that sludge in order to get to the stomach, which leaves me to believe that she might have been alive a little bit. I don't know, but I would like to know what you guys think when it comes to why she had water or oil, water, and sludge debris in her stomach, where Cece did not.
That doesn't mean to say that she went into the oil alive. Somebody who is very recently dead, substances can find their way into the oral cavity and down into the digestive tract as the muscles kind of relax. That does happen. It happens in drownings.
See, I didn't know that.
It doesn't mean she was alive at the
that
time she was actually put into the oil. But what it does indicate is that she was only very recently dead. If her body had started to go into rigor mortis, I would imagine that wouldn't happen because the muscles wouldn't have been relaxed enough. But again, that's just my opinion based on indications from people who have drowned. So that's just who's there, the clothing, pink pyjamas, images of hearts and butterflies, oil-soaked underwear. External evidence. So there's a 13 by 13 centimetre area of just damage to her left buttocks. That would have been as she was being pushed into the oil battery. Laceration of the frenulum, that's common. Injuries around the mouth and gums.
Well, she bit her tongue.
With people who've been forcibly smothered, so people who fought back. So that's a defensive wound, and she's probably bitten her own tongue, unfortunately. So we'll just go through these findings. Eyes were moderately opacified, no discernible conjunctival petechiae. The petechiae is something that appears in the eyes sometimes due to strangling, but Shanann's eyes didn't have petechia.
Oh, they didn't.
Doesn't mean anything really. It's just something that happens sometimes when people are strangled. The nose wasn't broken, so it does not grate on palpation. As we've mentioned, the frenulum is markedly disrupted and there's adjacent pink-purple bruises to the lips, and there's also teeth impressions and superficial bite marks on the surface of the tongue. No damage to her neck. So again, she wasn't strangled, so we wouldn't expect to see bruising around her neck.
She was smothered.
More post-mortem artifacts.
So that makes me believe, because they asked for the DNA of the girls and Shanann's throat area, but why would they do that if she was if they were smothered? That doesn't make sense.
In the abdomen, not
because that was
surprising.
Chris's attorneys that
And
asked
then
for
on
that.
the internal examination, no evidence of heart disease. I mean, we wouldn't expect there to be in such a little girl, unless she had obviously some congenital abnormality, but that's not the case. The lungs were normal. The spleen
They
was
were healthy
normal.
little girls.
Liver normal. Gallbladder normal. All normal. All unremarkable. Genital urinary system, all normal. The hyoid and thyroid cartilage are intact. Again, no evidence of strangulation. No contusions in her brain, so she wasn't beaten to death. The only damage to her head and skull was around the mouth area as she was fighting back. So that's all normal. So that's Bella's autopsy, and those are just the indications of what was tested and so on. Then we go on to Cece. So we've got kind of slightly less positive findings in Cece than Bella.
See, that's so weird.
But I suspect that might have been due to how the tests were collected and also the specifics of what was in the oil battery. So this was taken from spleen blood and liver tissue. They just basically take samples where there's a decent amount of blood. So here's the detailed findings of the things that they found. And then these are all of the analyses that they did and tested that weren't significant, that weren't found in the toxicology. And again, she was tested for a wide range of drugs,
which she didn't have.
Amphetamines, barbiturates, etc., opiates, none of which were positive. So again, we see the diagram that the forensic pathologist would have done at the time of her autopsy. They would have noted the clothing that she wore. They would also have noted all kind of the basic information.
Diaper,
Date
pink,
of birth
black t-shirt.
was 17th of July 2015. She was age 3, and she was wearing a diaper and a pink and black t-shirt. And there we see just a few pointers that were noted on external examination once the clothes are removed. But again, we'll go to the typed up report on this. And all the autopsies, Shanann, Bella and Cece, were done by Michael A. Burson, forensic pathology consultant, who is both an MD and a PhD. So diagnosis: history of being reported missing and subsequently located in an obvious state of death within an oil battery. And the diagnosis is asphyxiation due to smothering. And again, there's mild postmortem artifact, which means that there's possibly some findings that could confuse a diagnosis. So those kind of things are noted. It is noted, it's not kind of relevant to how she died. This is due to post-mortem issues, but there is a comment here regarding the ethanol found in her liver tissues. The concentration of the ethanol increased from 99 to 174 over the course of multiple analyses. The nature of the specimen and or the container type, which may not contain preservatives, may explain the variable quantitative results. She wasn't drunk, she wasn't consuming alcohol. It's just the numbers increased due to the analysis performed and the nature of the specimen. And
so they're very thorough.
All on post-mortem testing. So based on the history provided in the autopsy findings, the likely cause of death is asphyxiation due to smothering. Toxicology likely represent decomposition and an artifact of being submerged in an oil tank for several days. The manner of death is homicide. So the same as Bella's. General external examination. The autopsies commenced at 17:30 hours, so 5:30 on August the 17th. So the girls' bodies were both recovered from the oil tanks on the 16th. So these autopsies were done as a matter of priority. Rigor mortis is released, major muscle groups, and that was the same for Bella. I don't think I mentioned it, but that was the same for Bella, and also in the small muscle groups in the face. So she'd been dead quite a while. But as I explained in Shanann's autopsy, the specifics around rigor mortis, it comes on and is released in a predictable pattern, but the actual timings can vary. So it can
Depending on how
vary
hot or
based on
cold
the
it is.
size of the person, the age of the person, what they've eaten in the recent kind of past, in the last kind of hours or days in life, kind of the amount of energy in the body at the time of death can have an influence on the time that rigor mortis comes on and subsequently rigor mortis releases. Also, the environment can make a difference as well. So I don't know how being submerged in oil for 3 days can affect rigor, but what we can say is that rigor mortis had released. And
Still want to know
just
why
flick
he
back
put him
up
in
to
the oil.
Bella's just for completeness, because I'm sure I didn't mention it. So yeah, exactly the same for Bella. Rigor mortis is released in the major muscle groups and the
So they
muscles of
weren't
mastication.
stiff and.
But liver mortis wasn't noted because of the decomposition, so that was post-mortem artifact. Okay, so we'll go to Celeste's internal examination and external examination. So it's external examination first, and there's nothing remarkable here at all. So again, no discernible conjunctival petechiae. The nose does not grate, so her nose wasn't broken. The oral cavity wasn't damaged. So unlike Bella, who clearly
She
showed
fought.
defensive wounds due to fighting back, Cece did not. We could probably say that Bella's death was more violent, more difficult to achieve than Cece's. I would speculate perhaps Cece was not of sound mind, was perhaps very sleepy, just wasn't in a state to fight back at the time she was actually murdered. I follow the theory that, as Chris stated in the letters to Sherilyn Cadle, that he tried to suffocate the girls at home. Although
I don't
Cece
believe that.
may have been alive at the time she went to survey, she may not have been in a full state of consciousness. Or she may have already been dead. We'll perhaps never know for certain on that. But there's no issues with her external body, all normal. And then the internal examination, so no abnormal fluids, internal organs all discoloured due to post-mortem artifact. But there's no problem. She's not got heart disease.
She was a
All
beautiful
normal.
little girl.
Respiratory system normal, except for she does have a collapsed lung, whereas Bella didn't. We could maybe argue that
Why
she
did she have a?
was leaned on while she was being suffocated, and that collapsed her lung. Again, we'll possibly never know, but Bella didn't have a collapsed lung. Shanann did, though, interestingly. So there's no abnormalities in the spleen, the liver, the gastrointestinal tract is all normal. The stomach is empty in Celeste's case. She's not taken in any of the oil that Bella did.
See, it's so.
So could it be that Celeste had been dead longer? The muscles had started to rigidify. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It's just a speculation that Bella was perhaps only just dead when she went into the batteries, where Celeste had been dead a little longer. That's my speculation. Again, it's probably something that we'll never know for sure. So no evidence of damage to the internal organs. All the neck was fine. Hyoid bone and thyroid
So it wasn't
cartilage are
broken.
intact. Again, like with both Bella and Shanann. No evidence of hemorrhaging or anything like that in the brain, so she
But they
wasn't
still had to
beaten.
be in
Those are just the
special
swabs and things
coffins
that were
because
taken. So
for
those are the
bloating.
autopsies of both Bella and Cece. If you've got to the end, I know this is a really, really sensitive topic. I honestly put off making this video. It doesn't bother me so much reading through the autopsies because I can kind of
Picturing
look at
it
it, you know, with
is a little
a
bit worse.
somewhat detached kind of sense. But I do appreciate that it's difficult to communicate it to other people who might be upset by this. So hopefully I've covered this video in a respectable manner. And yeah, just thank you for listening.
So I thank you guys for watching and respectfully listening as well. I mostly did this for the people that wanted to have a little bit more, didn't know about these videos, and we just wanted somebody to watch with, because some people that are at home don't want to watch this by themselves. They rather watch with somebody like myself. I mean, I'm not physically there, but sometimes just watching with another person at home definitely helps. And just listen to this, it just kind of, it scares you into thinking how bad Chris and I'm still saying it, Nicole was in these murders. But again, comment your respects down in the description or in the comments. Like for the justice. Obviously, we want to get that justice in the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we do. Subscribe for more videos, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So please take care, keep it safe, and keep nerding on.